Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Shoshana and I give guidance through the spiritual awakening. And today I want to talk a little bit about quantum leaps on your spirit during your spiritual awakening or during life, these quantum jumps when there is some kind of something happens and in an instance your whole life completely changes direction. And this was a video that I was requested from me to talk a little bit about, and so I've been rolling around with it for a few days now. And I want to start by showing you a book which is called U2. So it's U squared by, it says, a high velocity formula for multiplying your personal effectiveness in quantum leaps. And I really want to suggest this book. It's by Price Pritchett, PhD. And I want to start by reading his foreword. It's a little story that he starts his book off, which is very, very profound, very short story, a true story. I'm sitting in a quiet room in the Millcroft Inn, a peaceful little place hidden back among the pine trees about an hour out of Toronto. It's just past noon, late July, and I'm listening to the desperate sounds of a life or death struggle going on a few feet away from me. There's a small fly burning out the last of its short life's energies in a futile attempt to fly through the glass of the window pane. The whining wings tells the poignant story of the fly's strategy. Try harder, but it's not working. The frenzied effort offers no hope for survival. Ironically, the struggle is part of the trap. It is possible for the fly to it is impossible for the fly to try hard enough to succeed at breaking through the glass. Nevertheless, the little insect has staked its life on reaching its goal through raw effort and determination. The fly is doomed. It will die there on that windowsill. Across the room, 10 steps away, the door is open. 10 seconds of flying time, and this small creature could reach the outside world it seeks, with only a fraction of the effort now being wasted. It could be free of this self-imposed trap. The breakthrough possibility is there. It would be so easy. Why doesn't the fly try another approach, something dramatically different? How did it get so locked in on the idea that this particular route and determined effort offer the most promise for success? Just like we get stuck in traps in our life, we're pushing, pushing, pushing. What logic is there in continuing until death to seek a breakthrough with more of the same? No doubt this approach makes sense to the fly. Regrettably, it's an idea that will kill. Trying harder isn't necessarily the solution to achieving more. It may not offer any real promise for getting what you want out of life. Sometimes, in fact, it's a big part of the problem. If you stake your hopes for a breakthrough on trying harder than ever, you may kill your chances for success. Price Pritchett. So I love this story. There's so many times that this story comes back to me where I go, okay, zoom out for a second. Let me see, what more options are there for me? And it tells so much of the story of humanity. And most of us can recognize ourselves in these patterns where we're going down a certain route and we keep on pushing harder and harder and harder, and at in futile seeking futilely more success by working harder. Or we have a 9-to-5 job where our paycheck is directly in comparison to the hours that we work. So there's only so many hours in a day that we can work. So we have the possibility of creating a little bit more for ourselves, but we don't have the possibility for that breakthrough. And a lot of times we get stuck in this trap. When I was in college, I went to college late, in my late 20s. But when I went to college, I learned um, advertising, and I learned strategic advertising. And so one of the parts of the course, and this was something that stuck with me through life, is that in the workplace, like a average pay check, or let's say upper middle class, there's a trap that is a known trap for the employees, right? You get employees and you want them to stay there for a long time, because the better employees you have, the more educated employees you have, and the longer you can keep them, you're making money off of them. So one of the traps is you pay them just enough to make it to where they can have a comfortable enough life, but not enough to where they will have an option to jump out of it, right? So you pay them a little bit above what is average, right? But it's still not enough for them to be able to accumulate a wealth that will allow them to make a quantum leap. And so a lot of us get stuck in this trap where we are living life comfortably, and we have little bonuses in life, right? Like we have 2 weeks off that we can take vacation, or we get a bonus after such and such, or we get overtime, or or even just the security and having a job that pays the bills, and we get stuck into a mortgage or the rent, or family life where we can't leave what we're doing, and we know how to do this already, and it's so scary to make a change, because when you make a change, you go into the unknown. Where does fear live? Fear lives in those monsters of the unknown, right? So this I know, this I can do, and people will live their entire lives in taking in one workplace until they go out to punch, and then that's it. And so really what this talks about, the story is about how making a quantum jump, doing a zoom out for a second, looking around you, because all options are open. As long as you are alive, all options are open. You can always make a change. I remember, I'll tell a story about myself. I remember, or I want to do a pre-story to the story. So when every single one of us can recognize defining moments in our life, moments that something happened and there was a switch in our mind. It was just like a bunk, and all of a sudden nothing from that day forward was the same. Now sometimes it's something very dramatic, like an accident, a near death experience, divorce, something very dramatic. We get fired from our job and our security, or things like that really are life changers. And sometimes it's just all of a sudden a realization, or all of a sudden we're going down this spiritual path, and we've grown, and we're still doing the menial. We're still doing what we are used to doing, the patterns of our life that we're used to, that we're already set in. And then all of a sudden we'll have this aha moment, and it'll be like, okay, I can never do that again. And then from there, your life goes in a completely different direction. So many of us know these. Sometimes it happens gradual, sometimes it's a shift, and sometimes it happens just like that with a quantum jump. And I want to tell a little bit about a story of my life. And you know, usually when we have these quantum jumps, it's in our life has gotten so out of sync with us. It's just like the fly. We're pushing. Sometimes it goes from extreme to just letting go and going in a completely different direction. Um, if you've ever been in it, decided to get a divorce, now you will go from the most extreme in your marriage. It'll be like, I'm in this, I'm trying to make it work, and it's difficult, and it's a struggle, and you go from one extreme, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, well, I could just leave. And then there's like a switch in your mind. It goes ping. And from that moment, that's it. It's like something in your mind just went dink, and you're out. There's no going back. And it can happen in an instant, and it can happen, gradually. But usually when it's a quantum leap, it's something just goes click, and it clicks into place. And you're like, why am I struggling with this? Why am I going down the wrong path, trying to force it to work for me when I can just go and then go into a completely different path that is more aligned with me. And in my story, I remember I had a big business. I was in a marriage. I was married for 17 years when I left. And we have four beautiful children together. And I remember it was such a struggle. It was such a struggle. We were always arguing. It was like we weren't friends, but we had this, it was almost like we were business partners. We were actual business partners, but it was like we were partners in a way, but on the personal level, there was complete mistrust there. And, and I had been unhappy for years in my partnership, almost from the beginning. And I remember there was this moment. We started going to counseling, and we were living near Chicago at the time, and we started going to counseling. And I remember we were sitting in on the counselor's room, and my now ex-husband, started saying, at the time I was 140 kilos, over twice as much as I weigh now. I was drinking. I was an alcoholic, and I realized that those things were just because I was trying to run away. I was trying to dampen the pain. I was trying to not face it. So I was just like alleviating the symptoms and not doing the internal work. And so and so I remember we were sitting in the counselor's office, and my husband went off on a list of things about me that I wasn't okay. I wasn't a good enough mother. I didn't keep the house up good enough. There was like five different things. I don't remember what else there was there. I was overweight, so I wasn't aesthetic. And I don't remember, there were things there that was just like, I was sitting there, I was like, something in my mind just clicked. And it's like, why am I married to somebody that doesn't see value in me? Why am I in a relationship with somebody that thinks so poorly of me? And in that instance, it was like a defining moment. It was like, from that moment, it was just like all of a sudden, going from trying to save the marriage and trying to be there and trying to prove myself more and trying to make myself better and more, to where he would approve of me more. So it was the fly in the window. It was trying to force myself down a path that wasn't suitable for me, because had he been able to appreciate me in and I'm not coming here in a way of blame. We are so far, it's been 11 years and we're already friends now, but it was not a good match from the beginning. I can recognize that now, because our blueprints of life were different. What he saw as being a good parent wasn't especially where our values were different. Our very core values were different. So there was no satisfaction. There wouldn't have, neither side would have been satisfied. I can say that today after going through myself and working through myself. But I remember at the time, I was putting so much effort into it, and trying to change myself and accommodate, and being a person that does internal, always feeling guilty that I'm not good enough. And then I realized it's just like what Einstein said about the fish in the tree. You don't judge a fish, on his ability to climb a tree. You don't judge a fish's ability on his ability, his worth on his ability to climb a tree. And it's pretty much the same thing. And so I remember sitting there, and it was a defining moment. That was a quantum leap moment. That was a moment of 2 minutes before, not even this second, it was just like, pook, something went bing in my mind. And it was just like, what am I doing here? And of course, it was a process. It took a long time it took probably another year or so, even for me to, because we had momentum going in our life. But from that moment, it was never the same. It was already a switch moment. Started putting, I started putting things into, and I remember we went home, and it was just, I was like shocked in that. And I remember the next morning, I remember he was on the stairs or something, and I remember saying to him, um, you know, the marriage is voluntary. We volunteer, and I'm not volunteering for this anymore. And I remember telling him, uh, you see all of these things in me, all of those things that you said that I'm no good at. What are we doing together? And he said, yeah, but I'm willing to look past all those things. And I said, yeah, but I'm not. I'm not willing to be with somebody that thinks all those bad things about me. And it was a quantum leap in my life. And that was a very drastic, we had to close down a business. It's the way we both made our living. We moved from there back to Israel. That was the actual separation, and it took a long time to do that. And we had to sell our house, and we had to square up an entire lifetime, and we had to sacrifice. That means that, when we closed the business, I had to want it enough to where what I wanted and the fear of letting go, the want was much stronger than the fear. And so you get to a point where it's like born out of you. There, you don't have a choice in it. There's such a switch. You cannot continue. Once you see it, you can't continue to go down those past lines. And there's this in many places in life. This one drastic quantum leap, but it's an example of how those things happen, where all of a sudden you're fighting to make something work. You're fighting in yourself, right? If you have to beat something into working, you are, and it is uncomfortable. It makes you feel, then you're not in the right path. And the fear, there's fear in letting go of what you know. But when you let go and you go down a path, first of all, there is this immense, when you let go of something that is not right for you, there is this immense relief. It's like you can breathe again. And you get excited again about life. You feel light, like you're not dragging the whole world on your shoulders, or not trying to force things to happen that don't want to happen naturally. And when you are feeling like, a lot of times right before a quantum leap, right before a breakthrough, you feel it. You feel that you're on the edge of something. You don't know what it is, but you're on the edge of something, and you're feeling frustrated because you've outgrown your own life. And it's just like, oh, I can't do this anymore, but I don't know where to go, what to do. And this is where you follow what makes you happy. Start looking at what it is that you are naturally prone to, what it is that naturally, and not talking about vices, I'm talking about things that naturally you have to get really honest with yourself, because a lot of times we are taught out of even allowing ourselves to want the things that we most want in life, right? If we're going to fulfill our lives, we have want to feel fulfilled. We're going to have to go after the things that will make us the most happy. That means we're going to have to admit it to ourselves. And a lot of times when we're really small children, we refuse to admit those things to ourselves because we're afraid of disappointment. We're afraid of who am I to say that I'm an artist, right? Let's say if somebody wants to go and they want to be a painter, or they want to work with people in healing, or want to do something in something abstract, or something that we were taught as children doesn't have value. If that is something that you are prone to and something that your inner self is calling you to do, then there is something there, and you're going to have to admit it to yourself first. You're going to have to be able to say it out loud, and you're going to have to be able to allow yourself to dream, because a lot of times we won't dream beyond our glass ceilings. We don't allow ourselves to dream because who am I to dream that? That's for other people. And the insecurities in ourselves that we've been taught, and then we, a lot of times we're taught to be insecure as children, and then we hold ourselves as we grow up, and we already can allow ourselves whatever we want. We still hold ourselves in those boundaries that others put on us, and believing that they are true. When in fact, when you become an adult, nobody is you get to think whatever you want to think. And first of all, start thinking good things about yourself. You have value. And if there's something that you are drawn to, there is a reason why you're drawn to it. You can't tell the divine there is a mistake here. There isn't a mistake. So first of all, admit it to yourself and allow yourself to dream, and allow yourself to think that there is another option, other options for you. I remember when I was married, when I was in my most deep insecurities, right? I was very deeply insecure in something. See, it's not there isn't an absolute, because in some things, like I was running a business, I had employees, I knew how to manage a business. I was doing really well in that aspect, but they were in the social aspect, or my marital aspect, like what I was deserving of in a partner in my life. I was so insecure in that I didn't even dare dream. And a lot of times I had like this internal, I remember sitting and thinking, that there's going to be a savior, there's going to be somebody, it's going to be so romantic. But it was like almost halfway subconscious thought of, one day I'm going to be discovered, one day somebody is going to recognize my greatness and pull me out of the hole that I'm in and be there for me. I remember thinking that. And I remember when I started going through, right before I had my breakthrough, where I changed my whole life. I went into rehab. I checked myself into rehab. I was in 2 weeks in rehab, which was the scariest thing I ever did in my life. Um, and first of all, even getting into therapy and having to admit to another that there was a problem. um, and it can happen to anyone. If it happened to me, it can happen to anyone. There is no shame in it. We all, especially the when you have a massive gift flowing through you, and you are a powerful being with a lot of very very strong energy flowing through you, then there's a lot more to work out, and life is very very intense. You're out there on the front edge, so it's very intense, and a lot of times we find vices because it's so intense. We just feel like we can't cope with it. So we go to all sorts of vices, addictions, smoking weed, drinking, whatever it is, porn, whatever it is. And it's basically giving ourselves an out. But the out, after a while, it doesn't work anymore, because you cannot run away from yourself, especially if you have a gift that is flowing through you. You can dampen it, and like um, um, there's a different word here, but you can pacify it, you know, where you don't have to go through the internal work. Because during the spiritual awakening, each and every one of you knows how much pain there is in going through the internal work and having to do it. And so I've gotten a little bit off track here. Um, so bringing it back to the quantum leap. So first of all, you have to allow yourself to dream. You have to recognize in yourself what that spark is. What's going to give you that spark? What's going to give you that enjoyment? And if you can't in the beginning, break into that full, start doing a gradual process of leaning towards what it is that you want, what makes you happy. So just cracking open the door, getting some kind of expression, because that enjoyment is going to lead you to more of the same. And it's like you're held in a box, right? And there's this light that wants to come out. Once you crack a little crack open, the light starts pouring through, it will start increasing that crack. It'll start showing you the way. There was something I wrote down yesterday. I've been kind of going through myself lately. I don't know if you can tell, but I've been kind of going deeper in myself. So I've had a couple of very intense days of purging, and it's been a couple of weeks now, but these last couple of days have really been intense. And something I wrote down was, take a step in the direction of what you want, and God will open the doors. So take one step. Start, just know, at least know what you want. Lay down, and nobody is in your mind with you. You can allow yourself to dream whatever it is you want to dream without those glass ceilings. What would be the absolute ideal? And I know I've asked people, what would be the ideal? What would you want? And they dream little dreams. No, that's not what you want. That is what you want under your glass ceiling. If you take your glass ceiling off, what you want is so much grander and greater than that. You're just not allowing yourself to even go there in your own mind because you're afraid of disappointment. But how are you going to go there if you can't even imagine it in your mind? So it's imagining all the grandness of what it is that you want. And then taking one step forward and releasing the dream, because what the dream is, when you actually imagine it in the furthest detail you can, because that will bring you into the emotion of already having it, right? Your mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and because it's all a dream, right? Even this life is a dream, it's an illusion. So your mind doesn't know the difference between you imagining something. Why you create through imagination. So your mind doesn't know the difference between you imagining something to where something is actually playing out. So if you can imagine the grandness of it, completely imagine the grandness of it, and then let that idea go, because what we're looking for is the emotion, because that emotion, once you feel it, you're in tune to it, you will recognize the things that are closer to that emotion. You will recognize the things that do come into your life that will slowly lead you to that emotion that you do want. It may not look exactly the same. It will probably never look exactly the same like you imagined it to look. But the emotion, that's what we're reaching for. And once you can imagine that emotion, you can imagine it with your imagination, which will bring that emotion for what it is. Allow yourself to get as close to that emotion. Sometimes it's difficult to get an emotion, but get as close as you can to that emotion. Once you get to that emotion, then you're already you already know the vibration of what it feels like. You will by nature start picking up on that vibration in things, people, situations around you. And that is what is going to lead you to that. That's why they say, when feel the vibration and then you're already there. That's what it is. You get that vibration and then you can recognize it because you know what it feels like. And so to take a quantum leap, you're also going to have courage to, first of all, dream, courage to dream, courage to say that you're worthy. Know that you're worthy. What's the difference between you or any other person in the universe? We were all born the same. We were all born, maybe not the same. Each of us are different, right? We have different gifts, but we were all born into the world as a being of this planet, and we're all stardust. So we're all equal in that way. And you can never achieve it if you don't allow yourself to say it. So if you have gifts, right? Like I say, I'm a guide to life. If I can't admit it, I can't say it. If I can't say it, it will not come to be. So you create your reality. So I am sending you guys so much love. Thank you for watching. It's time to just make a quantum leap just like that. If you would like a session with me, my contact information is below. Please reach out. If you feel a calling, answer the calling. Thank you.